Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Teachings of Joseph. I'm Cindy Edison. Today, I'm going to give you Joseph's perspective of the phrase dark night of the soul. I've been putting together this new paradigm teaching series that will offer the soul's perspective of the old paradigm teaching series, such as the ego, which has been our lead batter since the beginning of Joseph's first volume of the Allow Your Soul to Lead series. These are new teachings, or I like to say expanded versions of the old paradigm teachings that are offered now as part of the new earth vibration that Joseph represents. Within this vibration is not only the non-physical vibration of the new earth, but the non-physical version of us, the human aspect of our soul. Enter aspect teachings. This is where they start their whole series. The old paradigm teachings that are based in fear, for example, the teaching that the ego is a part of you that kind of disagrees somehow or is darkness within you, which is sometimes taught to mean that it's part of your inherent vibration. But your inherent vibration is one of love. So you can see why there's confusion around this teaching. And that's because there is no fear in the inherent vibration that you are at your core, meaning the inherent vibration of the soul, the non-physical vibration of you and me, and it is where we come from. This vibration, the vibration of the God consciousness, is within us all and is, in fact, where we are all connected to each other. This is the heart of our oneness. We're connected through our souls, right? So this is the space we're talking about. This is where this perspective comes from. But let me get back on track with this, because I'll do another episode of this series on the ego, of course. I've done a couple so far, but this is a big topic, and the current ego teaching has been around for a long time, as has this teaching of the dark night of the soul. There have been books written about this period of darkness with this dark night of the soul name, and umpteen others about the subject. And this phrase that has caught on and it's spread like wildfire through the spiritual community, and one that's still being taught today, of course. I'm not going into the history of this because Joseph, I'm part of we, so we don't go back to anything. We just pick up where we are and we move forward, which brings us to the series of the teachings. A new vibration brings new understandings. Always know that. That's how we expand. Joseph says, through our understanding comes our expansion. So Joseph begins in the first book of the Allow Your Soul to Lead series, talking about the soul and the ego aspects. The ego aspect being an aspect of the soul, which we've been explaining ever since they came on the scene. There's a lot to say about the ego from their perspective, and we'll keep saying it until we don't think it's necessary anymore, which will most likely be never. But I'll move on from that. They bring in us, the human aspect of the soul, in this first book, and how the three aspects relate to each other in this realm of contrast that we're living in the earth plane. This teaching is the first time I ever heard this explained this way, and I must say that this particular element of their teachings, which is the aspects of the soul, have brought me so much relief, and who I thought I always was turns out to be very different. This understanding gives me a whole new perspective to see myself from. It's really interesting. But it took the pressure off. As you understand more, you'll experience what I'm talking about if you continue to follow us. So the first 4 books are focused on teaching us about the aspects of the soul, and through this teaching, they widen our scope of understanding to include a different perspective of who we really are, and that is the physical aspect of our non-physical soul. Remember, Joseph teaches us that all aspects are equally important, equally worthy. So that's the first thing we need to get here. I picture this widening like a funnel, the wide side up, of course, and the more you expand your own awareness, the wider this invisible funnel gets. This is the vibration of the God within us. This is your higher self, your inner being, and the God you refer to and some believe is outside of you. Its human aspect. But that's for another podcast. And yes, I'll get to that one too. There's a lot of stuff, really good stuff coming. That'll be a good one too. But let me get back to the aspects of the soul. When I began hearing Dark Night of the Soul, it always felt wrong to me, and I never understood how it could be. And this was way before I got involved with Josef. I had had many instances back where I responded the same way, and I'm discovering now that all those times were responses to old paradigm teachings that didn't feel right to me even then. So again, even though it was showing itself by way of my emotional response to the teaching at the time, I didn't understand why or how until I had expanded my own awareness to include the understanding of the emotional response I was getting. You see how this works? It's always in us. Our expansion is what exposes it to us, the current aspect of our soul, the current human aspect, who we are, of our soul. Josef describes the soul as the non-physical vibration of us as our higher selves. They are pure positive energy, a pure positive love vibration, the most expanded vibration of us, and are indeed us in our oneness. You get that? The soul is an aspect of God, which means the soul has the power and the wherewithal of God, you see. Our soul, as Jesus said, is the God within us. It is the God consciousness that lives within us and breathes us. It is our vibrational connection to the universe, and it is the vibration that makes us all one with everything. That's where we're connected within our souls. So how can that ever be dark? Of course it can't. That's like saying, God's making mistakes or God has a dark side. And that's just not the case. It can't be. By definition, it can't be. So if you read the original text from St. John of the Cross, and if I remember correctly, could be wrong, he did not even use the word soul in the poem. And from what I remember, it didn't even sound dark to me. Here's what I'm getting at, though. The description Josef gives us about the soul that we just read, and this consciousness of pure love cannot, by definition, have or contain any darkness from which to create. This creative darkness exists in different vibrational realms, namely, and for our purposes, the third dimension of contrast. So, it's not the soul who goes through the dark night of itself, but the human aspect of the soul who is grappling with or struggling with or resisting its own expansion because of the fear of the unknown, you see, and the unknown that they speak of is the unknown vibrational timeline that we're moving into. There are many teachers who are stepping forward now, and most of the ones I've spoken to, over the last 6 months or so, they all have this one thing in common, and this includes me too. They come in saying, I'm confused, I don't see a direction, and I don't know what to do next. Well, I was there too, in a very confused state for quite some time until I started to open up and trust. I started to trust more, and the more I trusted, the more I could see the path clearly. I was only getting glimpses of the path before I got this understanding. So I had to choose by the way it felt. I had to choose my next step based on the way it felt to me, whether it was in or out of alignment. As I took baby steps, I could feel the rightness as I continued to listen, trust, and move forward. And that's how I carved out my space. Once you get, I pictured it as kind of a threshold. And once I was in that confusion, right? And a lot of people say, don't take a step if you're confused. And I am certainly of that mindset. However, in this situation, if you are being guided and you are consciously being guided, you are safe to take a step, because the emotional guidance system that Esther refers to as the emotional guidance system, we refer to as the understanding of your state of alignment, whether you are choosing from the place of alignment or the place of out of alignment, because that's where you're creating spaces, right? So they coax us along through this confused state when you know you're being led. They coax us along by way of emotional means, right? So if you're choosing the right way and your steps are in alignment, you will feel safe and you will feel happy and you'll feel peaceful and joyful. If the step is not in the right place, it will seem like effort and it will seem like you're forcing that square peg in the round hole kind of analogy. You know, again, Esther refers to this as our emotional guidance system. So if you're taking those steps and it feels right, they're saying continue to move forward. It's a choosing ground here, you guys. Our emotional guidance system is all about this moving into the new vibration that we have no experience in. We understand completely how the contrast feels. We may not understand it completely, but we all know how it feels. We all know how the fear feels. We know what anger feels like. We all know what jealousy feels like. We know what it feels like to be out of alignment. So anyway, the physical and non-physical vibrations are in constant blending motion when we are being guided. This is how we will live on the new earth. The new human aspect will be consciously connected and consciously channeling and experiencing oneness with our soul on the new earth. That's where they are. That's where they're sitting, in no fear. And that's where we're going. So one of the reasons they chose Allow Your Soul to Lead as the title for their first series is because this vibrational timeline that we're moving into, the timeline that they're calling us toward, has no fear. There's no fear element, and we have not been at this level of understanding, at this collective level of awareness before, where we can and will create the new human aspect and, of course, the new earth. If you're listening to this and following Joseph's message, you know that's the path that you are either on or considering through one teacher or another. It does not matter how you go, just keep moving forward. Again, I digress. So enter us, the human aspect. Our job, our chosen purpose, entering the dimension of contrast, is first and foremost a joyful expansion. We can't wait to get here when we make the decision to come, and then we hit the ground, right? Enter the choice of fear and all the influences that come with it. And this is the space we are here to expand out of, or walk beyond, you might say. We don't try to fix it or make it something that it isn't. We just expand beyond it and continue to move forward. It is through this expansion that the human aspect goes through what is referred to as the dark night of the soul. We prefer to refer to it as our glorious and natural expansion out of the dark night of contrast. As we continue to move forward into the new light, as it were, we have opportunities to see things differently, and this shift in perspective is what moves us forward. This teaching, as it has been taught since the late 1500s, implies that there is really no aspect of us who can guide us if the soul or the God of you is in the dark when we need it. What do we do then? Are we left to our own faculties? Boy, I hope not. This is why understanding the soul and ego aspects, the two non-physical aspects of us, their physical aspect, is so important now. As you understand more about the aspects of you, you release more resistance to the expansion of you, and you discover more of who you really are. So just to recap, we're suggesting or offering rather a new perspective with which to understand the term dark night of the soul by expanding beyond the fear-based teaching of it and moving into the loving meaning of it, which we defined as the glorious manifestation of your own expansion. If you can shift your perspective in this way, the next time you are preparing to experience a new vibrational timeline and something from your human vibration rears its ugly head, you can recognize it as your own expansion beyond the realm of fearful creativity. Once we get beyond the realm of fear, once we walk beyond the realm of fear, there's no more choosing of it, you see. This is where we're going. You got to let yourself off the hook. And what you'll discover as you continue to release yourself by releasing old beliefs that no longer serve this new vibrational timeline. Actually, they never did. They served us well in the timeline of contrast. That's where they were born, right? And they serve that timeline, but they don't serve this timeline anymore. And what will happen is that you'll reach for the last one on that hook, and you'll realize there's no hook there to begin with, right? It was just an illusion someone told you to believe, and as long as you believed it to be there, you had to have something to hang on it. And that something is usually us. We hang ourselves on the hook when we believe things without experiencing them. You know, Josef teaches us through this teaching of self-reliance and self-responsibility and being responsible for our own creations, our own manifestations, and most of all, and the bringer of all those things, is our being responsible for our own choosing. And this is something that comes under that category of choosing, because we are choosing to remain or to move forward. And now is the time to move forward. So in essence, what you're feeling during one of these dark nights of the soul episodes along your journey is really your own expansion. It's a combination of letting go and creating anew, recognizing it for what it really is at that time, and you can allow the expansion as it starts coming. This is what happened to me. You know, I used to go into these at that point. I don't know if I ever called them dark nights of the soul. I just went through a pissed off period of maybe, it could have been 2 months where I was just mad. I was just mad. I was angry at them. I was angry at this work. I was just angry because I just didn't see movement. And that was a sign of my own resistance to my own expansion. And the more I understood, the less those time frames came up. Not only the less they came up, but they didn't last as long. You know, they started out lasting maybe 2 months, and then it would go down to a month, and then it was a week. Now this is over a period of time, of course, because we're always expanding. So now it might be 10 minutes for me. This is the progress and the process of expansion, and that is going through these periods of expansion. We did a quote the other day that said, no pain, no gain, that is not our style. When you exercise a muscle, this is not verbatim, by the way, when you exercise a muscle, you feel pain and you refer to it as physical pain. We call it expansion when you are exercising your spiritual muscles. The pain can be felt similarly, one spiritual, one emotional, but the fact is that they are both expansion of us, right? So anyway, this is the time. The time is now. Josef says there's no time for dilly-dallying. Choose and move forward. So yeah, let's go. Anyway, I hope this short podcast, I hope this information offered a new, understandable perspective to consider. We only ask you to consider this perspective because what our mission is with teaching, we have so many missions, first of all, but what a huge part of this teaching is to offer a perspective of relief. That is the mission with shifting these old paradigm teachings into a new, more expanded version that fits this new vibration. It's got to fit the new vibration. You can't take the old fearful teachings with you. You can't take fearful anything with you. So we have to expand first in order to see our beautiful new earth that we are also simultaneously creating. It's a wonderful thing. It's so exciting. Adventure for sure. Anyway, check us out at theteachingsofjoseph.com. Follow us on Instagram at The Teachings of Joseph for daily quotes and updates as we get them. We are in a mode right now of creating content, so we're getting out as much as we can, but this is something new for me, and it's really interesting. Anyway, as always, thanks for listening. Email us any questions. They all get read and answered, and we are always happy to help you if we can. Until next time, take good care, and as always, welcome aboard.